Hey guys, Kassad here. You're about to watch Thorin talk and talk and talk. But it's kind of good, I swear.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Talk to Thorin. And this one, obviously, I've done some before with Kassad. Essentially, people don't know. Basically, this is just a way to have, like, one of my series just be like, let's talk to Kassad about something. So let's actually talk to Kassad, not talk to Thorin, I guess, for this one. But basically, what happened was we could have done this as, like, a discussion on an actual talk show, but there wasn't an appropriate one scheduled. And basically, everyone's seen this big move. I mean, there was this, like, separate drama around the leakers involving it of NiKo was going to be in Falcons. He was obviously one of the most consistent names people saw on the list. And I can confirm, by the way, he absolutely was someone they were talking to, and he was someone who was, in theory, the rumour was he was going to join and all that jazz, and it was all going forwards. It's like Snappy and some of the other names you've seen there. By the way, spoiler, when they have the names like Simple, that is just completely pulled out someone's ass. But the main ones you've seen, and obviously people know Magisk is there and Zonix there, right? So this story has three components to it. It's that one, NiKo didn't go to Falcons and came back to G2, and we won't do the whole meme thing of like an insane U-turn at the end, like, which sounds like what I'd say if I'd got it totally wrong too, and then he just said no at the very end, you know, like, oh my god, it's insane, like. But then obviously part two of the story is within G2, whether in response to this or separate, JKS gets benched, and then the player coming in to replace JKS initially, and this is all we know about Uster moves, is apparently Nexa, which is like, obviously this is all scrambling everyone's brains, because one, you got the whole topic of like, should NiKo gone to Falcon, should he stay in G2? If he stays, and this is actually part of the reason I think Kassad probably thought to have this discussion, this is why I think this drama's just now blown up separately around NiKo, but the idea he's the one calling the shot on Nexa, because the problem is, since Nexa was in G2 previously, the rumour was Hunter and NiKo wanted to keep him, and obviously he is a mate of theirs from Serbia. It just looks like everyone thinking it's the classic story of like NiKo just called the shot, didn't he? Just said what he wanted, and they brought him his guy. I mean, in this scenario, they're almost making it sound like Nexa to NiKo is like Smiths to Shocks, where it's like, you know, his second Shocks gets there, he's like, right, Smiths, yeah, I'll have you in like a month, mate, see it. Like, you know, but obviously that's the, and then the third, and then, so then the premise goes, these are all connected, these are not connected. We'll do all three, essentially. So, Kassad, just give me the initial, like, big picture. I guess we should start with the NiKo one, obviously, because the rest of these moves aren't as relevant, or all the other storylines don't occur without it. So, why, I'm actually surprised that you would have, that you would be in any way, you actually wanted NiKo to go to Falcons, right? I mean, if people think of the last year, you don't like the Hooksy angle, you think G2 haven't gotten him some of the things he needs in the team, so you actually did want NiKo to go to Falcons, right, in theory?
Yes. Absolutely, right. I was, you know, completely for that, for the fact that NiKo should go to Falcons. Let me just opening his profile on HLTV just to check how old is he, because I should probably know.
He should only be like 27 or something. And what is he now?
26, right?
There you
26.
go. Not too old.
Not too old. He has 4 or 5 years, because he's a star elite player, right? He has 5 years at least at a very high level. So that's a lot of time, right? And that he should, in my opinion, definitely he should have switched the organization, go to Falcons, simply because of the long-term like deal and the big picture, right? Right now, in 2024, we all know that the partnerships are lasting for 12 more months, and they are ending because Valve said no to this, right, anymore. So it's going to be more open circuit. There's going to be more chances and opportunities for teams to get qualified for the big events, right? So in the short term, NiKo would definitely suffer, you know, simply because he wouldn't be able to play and qualify for all the Blast events, most of the ESL events, but that wouldn't include the major, that would include some other things, and the suffering would be in those 8-9 months of competitive play, right? The next negative thing would definitely be the introduction to a new organization that has not reached the level of structure that G2 has. Right, they have all the processes, systems in place, everything like socials. All the teams are, organized, and there's all high-skilled professionals behind, all these departments. Right, well, most of them at least. So that would be a bad thing for his name as well. Obviously, there is drama with the funding and the private funding, and what does it mean with the conflict of interest? Do you want to associate yourself with that? But it's just, those are the negative things. But the positive things are the long-term ones, right? If you disregard, obviously, the funding and the whole aspect of the money coming from and where is it coming from and all these things, right? If you go to the long-term picture, you will see the fact that he's going to be working with the GOAT coach, like the most successful and the most impactful and the most winning coach in the history of CS2, I guess. And the guy who was very impressive in CS 1.6, he switched that to the CSGO. He won 5 majors with 2 different teams. He led different squads, different mentalities, bunch of star players, including Device, with all his drama and all these things. And then coming to coach Zaivu and changing his language and working with the IGL, that's Apex, that has never been an IGL, dealing with all these things and different problems in the organizations. Remember the stuff in Australis that we witnessed in the past, whatever years, right? The Vitality is a different story for me. They're one of the top orgs now. But the thing is, like, that's the positive part. That the second thing is, obviously, you have Magisk. He's 25 now. He has won four majors. He is with 2 different teams, a solid anchor, a really good player. You would get Snappy. I think that deal is close to being done, or as far as I know. I'm not sure 100%, so don't take this as a guarantee, but I think it should be done. That's one of the best IGLs at the moment. He has at least 1 or 2 more years in him. He's, I think, 33 right now. The problem right there for him is probably in the first year, in the first 6 to 8 months, he's fighting a star Opper, because we know that Monesi wasn't going to be sold. That's what G2 publicly said. Shiro's English is not the best, or good at any level. And who do you have? Simple, that is taking a break, and you have to take a risk. So that's positives and the negatives. But I think in the long run, it would benefit him more, because in about a year from now, they're probably going to qualify. They would probably qualify for both majors with NiKo and a star op, and they would have a semi-successful year, right? That would be not tier 1 year, but then 2025, 2026, 2027, it would be great years for both NiKo, Zonic, and whoever comes in that team. So I do believe that would be the best case for him. I think he went for quicker solution. He went for a safer solution to stay in G2 for another year. I don't know how his contract is working right now. Did he extend? They would probably announce if he extended, so I don't think it goes past 2024 or something. Maybe January or June 1st. I can't remember when was that deal made with him and Hunter signing the same deal. So that's going to be a problem for G2 keeping him on, unless they offer some crazy money, which they cannot offer, right? And the contract is expired, so they have to make a decision how they want to sell him at the half year, right? At June, July, make some money off him, right? For selling for maybe $1 million, just under that, or depending how much he has on the contract left. So, and he's still going to be playing most likely all of the events. They still have to qualify for the major. The RMRs are in January, February, like 2 months from now. They have to find a proper anchor, so that's going to be challenging for him. I just think in the long run, in the big picture, he should have switched to Falcons, because the funding is going to be unlimited. Yes, they're not going to waste money, but it's not going to ever be worried is it going to stop? Because it's not going to stop. They're going to keep paying, right? They're going to and they got the right people to help them build a team. If they got some, whoever guy to coach or lead the division, it would be a different story. Then I would probably not agree with NiKo and let him stay in G2, right? But here you have Zonic, you have people who have proven to know some sort of recipe to create a team that's going to be a contender, right? So if you go there, I think long run, big picture, he would benefit more, even financially and with the results in a space of 3 years, rather than staying in G2 for about 12 months from now and then switching. So that's just my take on it. I do think he made a slight mistake, but again, we have to talk to him to understand what he wanted to do with his career in the next 12 months. Because for me, the Opera might be a biggest challenge for Falcons right now. Now when they don't have NiKo, so it's going to be even worse for them. They might not even qualify for the major because they don't have enough players to kind of support what they want to do. But overall, I think he should have switched to Falcons immediately, and then suffer for a little bit, and then benefit a lot.
This is the other part of this deal that was totally fucked up by all the idiot fans, you'll notice, right? They still don't understand to this day, kassad. This is how I know they don't actually watch sports, or if they do, they don't pay attention. They still think they don't know what the difference between a free agent and someone under contract is. Because you notice every single reply to this move that NiKo changes his mind and stays at G2, every comment you'll have seen, it was wow, he got the bag low. Holy shit, he got the bag from what bag? He's under the same contract. Like, what are you talking about? Like, as you say, it would actually be totally, like, by the way, if he'd re-signed with G2 would want to tell you that. That would be announced immediately. It would be like, the joke is they'd actually do, like, blockbuster move, like, NiKo, 2 more years or whatever. Like, wow, we got him locked in. The GOAT, they do all that banter stuff on fucking social media. So that part already, I think people have got lost in that. They think this is NiKo doing, like, what's weird is they're all giving NiKo props. You've seen this, for, like, the idea that he, like, played Falcons, but he just wanted to be in G2 the whole time. That doesn't seem at all like what it's like. As you said, to me, I actually get the notion of why he might want to join this team. This is actually a part I think's been lost on people, is specifically if we want to use the cases of Zonic and Snappy, 2 of the more like established ones that people like. The Snappy deal isn't done, but it's basically implied it's going to be done, and the Zonic deal obviously is done. The reason why they go, and I want to make this case because this is why I actually disagree. I think he should have stayed in G2 anyway, but it's all about the time span. That's why though, kassad, because I actually agree with what you're saying. I can tell you've actually talked to some people involved, because when Zonic said that thing of like, I'm not doing it just for money, and everyone was just like, oh yeah, whatever, boo, obviously you are, you just sold out, you want the bag. Like, no, as far as I can tell, the reason why I think specifically for Zonic, but also for Snappy, this is an awesome deal, is I have heard, like you're implying, that there isn't actually expectations, by the way, that day one you walk in and be like the best team or win the major. In fact, I've heard, unlike other orgs, there's going to be like a really nice ramp up time where you can actually like maybe have like a year plus to put the team together, get the facilities, qualify for the leagues. And the notion is actually it's the opposite of other esports orgs, because I tell you what, people will say now, kassad, that Zonic is the GOAT, but if you've seen how coaches get treated in this game, if he had a bad 6 months with Vitality or like flunked the next major, he might get fired. That is the world we live in right now. Whereas like, I think if you're people like Snappy and Zonic, yeah, true, this might be like your last run, but you also want it to be done properly where you don't feel shortchanged. Like, you don't want to move to a new org, go, in this case, maybe even have to go to the Middle East a bunch of times, start building the team. Like you're saying, maybe you get like one problem, like maybe you can't get the AWPer initially, so you've got like one piece you're still working on. No one wants to be judged on that like football and then just fired 3 months in and be like, what the fuck, what did I gamble all this for? It doesn't matter how much the paycheck is, that's not worth it. So actually, I get why they want that, but this is where I'm going to tie this in. That's why the angle for me though is this is why actually ideally we'd have NiKo here and he could tell us, because basically my problem is this: it depends what NiKo's like ultimate priority is. Like, if to me it's like essentially win the major, because it's the one thing he hasn't done in his career, like essentially if I'm NiKo, my number one goal right now, kassad, is win the first CS2 major. You know, like that's the most obvious thing to put on my calendar. And my problem is this: if you ask me right now, who has the better chance to win, G2 as it is or the Falcons team that hasn't yet been signed? I've got to say G2 as it is. Like, they aren't my number one team, but they're probably like third or fourth. They've got a real chance to win it. And if I'm NiKo and I just want to win the next major and be number one now, I think there's a faster path there. But I'll spin this actually, because obviously I want to get your take more generally about this move, because the spin I have before we get into the JKS and Nexa thing goes like this, kassad. I do think a problem NiKo's had, and who knows, maybe one day we'll talk about this, kassad, is if he hasn't actually influenced some of these moves. His problem is it looks like they have, but I think more importantly, I would phrase it this way: everyone else thinks he should do it. Like, I actually think the weirdest thing about NiKo's angle, kassad, is it's always like him sort of being like, hey, I'm not the one saying to do these moves. And my position's always been, bro, why? Like, you're the star player. Like, look, you don't have to be an arsehole. It's not like you sign the deal and then you tell G2 they have to do every move. No, that would be fucked up. But like in this case, like this scenario we're talking about, kassad, if you have the real choice to leave and they want you to stay, that's actually a perfect time to turn around and say, hey, G2, I do want to stay, but here's some things that if you do, will make it like, so I will stay, or I'm more likely to, or I would prefer to stay. Like, I mean, by the way, insert here whatever you want. It could be like me and you could say, replace Huxley. How about instead of Huxley, I want Cadian or something, whatever. I'm picking random options here, obviously. Similar thing. Maybe, look, I don't know that he did do this. We'll get into it. But let's say he was the one who didn't want JKS, then I'd want Nexa instead of JKS. Well, my point is he could do that if he wanted to. I actually think, by the way, if he thinks that's right for him to win, he should do that. So I want to know what you think of that angle, because what do you think of this angle where he always sort of says that he never had anything to do with the moves? Because I kind of feel like if you're as good as him or as simple or something like that, where they're sort of like, you're not just playing for their team, they're basing the whole team around you. I sort of want you to give me your feedback. I want you to tell me if you want different people in the team, right?
Yeah, I do agree with the angle, but what people understand, NiKo said it himself yesterday, or the day before, whatever it was, that people don't understand that he doesn't have that's absolutely true. People don't understand it. They think he just points the finger and that guy's kicked. And he just points this finger and that guy's brought in. It doesn't fucking work that way. It's never worked that way. He didn't do it in mouse sports. He didn't do it in FaZe. He didn't do it in G2 as well. It's just the way it doesn't work that way, right? And no smart person in that org would allow that to work that way. But your angle makes sense in a way that he can influence the direction. He doesn't influence the moves. He doesn't negotiate the deals. He doesn't pay the salary or decide what the salary is to a certain player, right? He just maybe influence that. If you have a LeBron James or Tom Brady in your team, right? You would go to him, listen, 2022 or 2021, 2023 was semi-successful for us. We want to keep you in the team and we want to like get to the next level. Which direction do you feel like we need to go? And then he says like, listen, he doesn't say, listen, I need you to bring this guy and that guy and this guy. He says, maybe we need to deal with the IGL, situation right now. I think we need an upgrade. I think we need somebody instead of JK, if that's the case, right? Which isn't. Maybe we get and look there, right? He doesn't have to say the name. He doesn't have to cut their salaries. He just is, maybe we are lacking in a little bit of an anchor position. Maybe our mid-round calling is not at the level that other team have. Like maybe we need to like do this. And that's how you as a star player, as one of the GOAT contenders, influence the game. You don't think LeBron James had anything to do with Cavaliers or Miami Heat? Does Tom Brady not talk to Bill Belichick about potential wide receivers and where they needed to cut Randy Moss and they get Julian Edelman and all these people, right? It's just the way it should work, right? And there's some players that can do it and there's some players that cannot do it, right? Some players need to be in their role, in their line, and just stay there and then do their role and be a part of this machine, right? Some players have a bigger role in the machine. They're a bigger, more important part, and they can decide direction that the machine is going. Not the fact that they don't need to just go and kick players. It doesn't work that way, people. It just doesn't, right? The thing with... Well, I don't know if you want to segue to the second part of the whole.
Let's do that in a sec, 'cause I have another question for you that goes like this, which is if he'd gone to Falcons, because obviously that's not happening now, but if we just speculate if it had happened, right? Like I say, my problem with that move isn't that it couldn't work. It's more like, I just don't feel like, I mean, you sort of said it. It's not even implied with how they're being talked to, those people. Like I say, that you have to like be number one immediately. I mean, as you imply, like just the fact you're not going to be in Pro League and Blast, etc., actually means you probably can't even be number one immediately. It'd probably take a while just to qualify or to buy a spot or to actually like get up the rankings. And then even if you get to a major, like the Rajcula was saying, we don't yet know what the 5-man lineup, which is half the problem. So my issue is this, like if I'm looking long term, like you say, like if I say like, let's say for the first 2 years of CS2, then like actually it is a mega set of starting pieces. Like I've got the amazing coach already. I think Snappy is actually probably the best IGL. I think that's a mega pickup there. Magisk is one of the best, like sort of like third options probably ever in World Counter-Strike. Basically all you're missing at that point in time is like one rifler and then an AWPer. But the downside obviously is AWPer can be a tricky role to fill, especially if we're talking, like you say, if they have to speak English. Like if people don't know, just go watch when Cloud9 did a piece with Axile and Shiro where they ate burgers and gave their thoughts. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Shiro can barely speak English, guys. He can just say very simple sentences like, sort of like, burger was good or like, juicy or something. Like, he can't like have a whole conversation. So I think it's implausible he'll come, which means also a bunch of the other CS AWPers probably off the table. So it's not as easy as you think to fill that spot. But my question to you would be this, is the reason I want to ask you specifically this question is, it was actually the fucking Cloud9 team you were involved with, bro, that totally changed my perspective on building teams. I used to love this exact idea that you make the whole team of all the pieces you want. But when I look back now, the problem is, I know like that project, one, if you ever get one spot that's not quite as good as you want to recruit at, it can collapse the whole project because you try to build it all on top of each other. And then the other part is, it can also be... when you're doing a concept like that, I think the flaw is you have no idea how the players will play together because there's no pre-existing chemistry. Whereas like now I actually do sort of buy into the idea that it would be better. Like, for example, to me, the best purchase anyone in World Counter-Strike could make now isn't Falcons. It would be whatever the phase core is. Like if let's say the phase core is 3 or 4 players, but you have to replace 1 or 2. Yeah, but I've got the pre-existing like team. Like I know that part works. I can just add 2 things in. To me, it's a bit dodgy when you bring in like a bit like the Na'Vi lineup. You just bring in pieces that have never played together. Like could work, but it feels like it's a big gamble. So what do you think on that angle? Don't you think it would be a gamble for him to go to Falcons? Like, if he went there, is your logic that eventually having NiKo means you do just get like it doesn't have to be simple, but like an amazing AWP? Do you think it's just inevitable they would get it eventually? Do they keep paying and make a big super team, or do they just stick with these players? What would your thought have been?
It is a gamble. It is a much smaller gamble when you have people that know what needs to be done, where they understand, like, to identify the problem very early on, right? To see, like, okay, maybe this part was the wrong move. Maybe we need to switch it up. Maybe we need to switch the direction here or there, right? When you have people who have been through this multiple times, like, for example, Zonic, right? And people that were played in different teams. You have Magisk in the lineups, in Vitality and Astralis, NiKo in FaZe, Mouse, whatever, right? G2, that can identify problems quicker, then the gamble becomes much more valuable, right? Like, it makes more sense to gamble. But for example, being Cloud9 now, and the other one, right, is that we had wrong people picking the players. Henry was struggling. He was trying to find the middle ground between us and Jack in C9, and Jack who is waking up one day he wants one player, the other day he wants another player.
Right.
And what he failed to understand is the fact that you are not picking players. You are picking if you want to pay for them or not.
Right.
That's your decision, right? You are not choosing who you want to play for you, because that's not area expertise for you. You are a businessman, you have money, and you decide, okay, this is a valuable opportunity and this isn't, which led to him paying 500k for S-Attack, who played 30 maps for Astralis at that time, and then wasted all of that money, paid 300k for Voxic, and then gave him up for free 3 months later. And, you know, all this shit that happened with that lineup, and the same shit is happening right now, right? The idea was much better right now, and I can agree to that. They had some different personnel issues there, but overall, the gamble is valid if you have the players and the staff that can support and identify the problems that you're going to be dealing with. I think right now you said yourself that you think they're in a good spot because they have like all this money and all this time and all this whatever vision. But I think they're scrambling a little bit right now, simply because, like I said, RMRs are what, in 2 months. Today is like middle of November. And there is a player break, and straight after that there is the open qualifiers and, you know, closed qualifiers, and if you manage to qualify, and that's going to be a problem. Now they potentially wasted a month negotiating for NiKo. That would attract more players if you got him into the team, because who doesn't want to play with him, right?
Yeah, that's actually the part that the casual fan probably misses, is that NiKo saying no might now mean like other people who haven't yet been announced will say no as well. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because they don't get to play with NiKo, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if he wasted a month there with negotiating and then saying no at the end, he fucked them over a little bit. You have to admit that, right? And now they're scrambling to find another player, and that's gonna fit their shoes, and that's gonna be good enough to qualify them to the event. Because again, they're not playing Blast, they're not playing ESL events. If they don't qualify, what the fuck are they going to pay for the next 12 months? Because we know Zonic isn't cheap, Magisk is not going to be cheap, whoever comes there, Snappy isn't going to be cheap. Like, that's going to be players that need to qualify for something, and if they don't qualify for Major, it's going to be a money not well spent, at to say the least, right? So overall, I do believe they're scrambling right now to find somebody that's going to replace NiKo in that lineup, and somebody that's going to be the op, that's going to be good enough to carry that. And now we have to imagine that, you know, you don't really look for an op as an op. You need somebody who can open a rifle, because op is nerfed. So it's going to be a different problem for Zonic right there, right? So it's a tough situation for them, right? I don't envy them right now. Yes, they have unlimited money. Yes, they have a good deal. Yes, they have a vision and everything. But right now they're in a bit of a problem, simply because NiKo said no, because that's kind of created multiple problems that follow him not being there, right? Not being able to get an op, ultimately not qualifying for different things. So it's going to be very, very hard for them to kind of actually do something. But on the other hand, G2 here is going to have their own problems right now, you know, with JKS being off the team, Hooks is still being there, NiKo team knowing that NiKo wanted to leave. Is that another aspect of the whole thing? It's not like he came back and they welcomed him like a hero. Sure. Because if I was there and thinking like, okay, you wanted to leave, but now you're here, do you really want to be here? You know? And whoever comes to G2, does that mean that NiKo is still going to be there?
He might leave in a few months, exactly, yeah.
Because maybe it's not because of NiKo himself. Maybe the org wants to sell him because they want to make money. Because if he doesn't want, if they can pay him whatever money he's asking for the next contract, he has to go somewhere that's going to be, you know, that money is going to be provided. triggers a lot of problems, right? So it's not that black and white like people think on Twitter.
By the way, for another thing people might not understand is, if it is true that the Saudis are willing to pay like a max buyout for someone like NiKo, this is also where I feel like fans are really not understanding like the sports angle, right? Okay, I'll give you the example, Kassad. I've used this example in the past, so I'll do it again. So you know I'm a fan of Liverpool Football Club, right? On paper, as a fan, I'm not supposed to want Mohamed Salah to go to a Saudi club, am I? But I'll tell you what, Kassad, if they want to pay $200 million for him, I am happy for him to go to a Saudi club, because then Liverpool has $200 million to spend, and the joke is $200 million can actually buy you a player as good or better than Mohamed Salah. So the stupid thing is, as long as the finances make sense, it can actually make sense for the deal. So I actually, this is another part I feel like fans have missed, is if I'm G2, it might even actually, right now, with you consider how hard economic times are, it might even have been awesome for me to sell NiKo right now. It might be what I wanted to do, even though like I won't have as good a player. Like obviously I can't replace him in the server tomorrow. Maybe financially there's no major for a while. Maybe they wouldn't have minded it. Maybe they would have even done it. Because what I want to flip and ask you is this, is I think the problem about the JKS move is, believe it or not, I think that's also tied to what people think NiKo's doing, because the timing was just bad. Like if you remember, they actually announced that timing, Kassad, no joke, I think like a day after he got didn't go to Falcons or something mad. It was like NiKo doesn't go to Falcons, and it was like immediately like JKS benched. So it made it look to a fan behind the scenes like JKS was like, I'm not staying unless you bench JKS, even though obviously we have no reason to believe that. That just is what it looks. It looks weird, right? Like, what are the two connected? From your perspective, is there any connection at all here? Like, as far as you know, I mean, you know, JKS obviously used to be his coach. Is this like? Do you have any idea of what this move is? Like, because as far as I can tell, if it really is G2 doesn't want JKS, that's another part where I don't know if we're going to disagree, mate. Because I think that's an insane move. Like, I think this guy's one of the most fucking perfect for his role players in all of World Counter-Strike right now. Like, I wouldn't change this guy. So what's going on? What's your perspective?
The thing is, like, let's go back first for the last part of the previous, topic. It absolutely makes sense for G2 to sell NiKo right now, simply because, like you said, you mentioned the Mo Salah and the Liverpool. It absolutely makes sense because it's not like you need the NiKo as a mandatory thing to win the major. We obviously know that's not true. And or any other event, we saw many less skilled players, less skilled teams win more bigger events. So it's not like it's about creating a proper team, right? And if you sell NiKo for $2 million to the Saudis or 1.5 million or whatever it is, you have 1.5 million.
You can buy two players for that.
Yeah. And how many players can you buy now that are free agents, that are talented players coming into CS2, new wave of players, the partnerships are going. It's going to be easier. That's going to decrease the salaries a little bit, put some pressure on these lesser organizations. The buyouts are not going to be that high. It triggers all the things, but they don't think. They just, they think, NiKo, okay, we need to keep him. You don't need to keep him. You can sell him. Anyway, the timing was just terrible. When with the JKS and NiKo coming back, and I can tell you with 100% accuracy, and you can clip this, you can post it, I don't give a fuck, do whatever you want. NiKo had nothing to do with that. It was just terrible timing. That was a decision made by G2 for whatever that reason is, I don't know, and I'm not going to get into it simply because I don't know. I haven't spoke to JKS about it whatsoever. I see him playing a little bit, but the thing is, like, for me, I understand the move. Like, I don't disagree with it. I don't know how it was executed properly, or maybe like it was backstabbing or whatever the hell happened, because we saw recent tweets from different people in the community, making, assumptions at the very least, or just, reacting to it a little bit interesting, right? And I don't know how it went, but the thing is, like, I understand the move itself because JKS is 28 years old, I believe. Let me check this, but I do believe.
Sounds about right.
I mean, yeah, he's 27, so he's about to enter 28. He has what, 1.52 years left at best, and he's not really playing the role that can support anybody that's not on the peak of his game, right? That's a closer role, that's a anchor role that you need to be stable, you need to be calm, you need to be very reliable in now number of frags that you are putting out on every single game. You need to be always on top of your game. That's a role. That's a coldzera role. That's a Rob's role. All these previous I said coldzera because of the people in the past, but Rob's now is the best example, right? And can JKS be 2 more years on that level? I don't think so. I don't think he can. Yes, they won. What did they win? Cologne and Katowice, and that's that.
In the world
that's a
final or
successful
whatever, but
year.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that's a successful year.
Yeah.
It was the most successful year for G2 in whatever, right? In forever, right? So, but is this gonna repeat in CS2? Maybe they see that CS2 is not really clicking good with JKS on practices. Maybe that's something that we haven't really thought about. Maybe he's not feeling himself. We don't know the reason for that. He said nothing. Maybe he wanted himself to not be in that team, but that's just, speculation, obviously. For me, 28 years old right now on that role, I don't think he can do it in teams like G2 or Tier 1 teams that are supposed to be the contenders for the majors and all these titles. Put him in complexity. Put him in Mouse and mix the youth with experience, right? Put him in like maybe Fnatic, all these teams like that can be playoff contenders. Maybe we can a couple of events, but in a team that's going to be a constant contender and needs to win every event, that has a GOAT in the team, and Hunter, who is also young, 26, I think 25, 26. It's in Monesi, obviously, who is 18, and who knows who they bring. Like, he needs to be on the top of his game, right? He needs to be on top of his game on that specific role. And I don't think he's doing the 2019-2020 job in his role. Yes, he did win with FaZe. Yes, he did win with G2. Yes, he played well in a number of occasions, but I don't think he has been constant all that much. He hasn't been like, all the time like rising, and it's just on highest of his game. There was problematic times. There was times where he was supposed to be replaced, where they didn't qualify for the major, where they didn't do well in months. Do we forget about that? Or we just focus on the fact that they won 2 events and world finals, and we need to keep him for 2 more years because of that? I don't think so. I don't think that's the solution. I think they made the right move wanting to upgrade, right? They're thinking, okay, we need to upgrade that position. We need to find somebody better suited, that can communicate better, that can do things better on CS2, on T side, CT side, whatever. I can understand that, right? If it's not something else, then we need to wait for the reasoning and whoever says like what happened. I'm sure Justin at some point, because that's the way he is, he's gonna take it all in, and then after sometimes he's just going to explode and say everything that has happened. He said that multiple times. That's just the way it is, right? And I'm looking forward to hear what the hell happened and why he was benched. But I can tell you with 100% accuracy that NiKo coming back into that has nothing to do with JKS being benched. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with NiKo or salaries or anything like that. It's just poor timing. It's just NiKo was supposed to go, and he was supposed to be in Falcons, and he made the decision not to go last moment, and they were already making that call, and I think JKS was on his way out, despite the fact that NiKo is coming back.
The problem I have with this move is I actually think it's bad for all parties involved. But I'll spin to a question to ask you your thoughts in a second, because it goes like this. First of all, I think it's bad for G2 because it's not like there's nobody can be better than JKS, like you say. It's not like he's like the best player in the world at his role. But there's not many that are better right now. And also the other thing is, every time you change a player, it is a gamble. You don't know how that's going to fit. I think he fits like a motherfucker, mate. Like, one of the things I've always thought's underrated, actually, is obviously everyone talks about a team by how it's set up on the T side and what role you play. Dude, he's another guy where, like, on CT side, you're just going to get free frags. This guy just frags when he has his spots. And for me, the other thing that's key is, not only has he been good in G2, but I actually think for JKS, this is the best. Like, look, he could probably have slightly higher numbers if he was, like you say, if he went to complexity and then he has, like, all his roles there and he basically tries to be like Renegades JKS. He could probably have higher numbers and be like, 20th player on HLTV top 20 list. But the difference is, Kassad, like, I actually think if you look at JKS's career, I don't know if that's best for him, though. Like, not only will he not have a chance to win, but I got the vibe, if I look what happened when he went to the old complexity, the one with Blame F and that actually one of his issues is he's not the guy who's going to fight you for his roles. So if you have someone else who's like, well, I want that spot, he just gives them up. Whereas I thought the genius of G2 was he doesn't need to. He just has those. That's exactly the spots that were available. He walked in, they fit him awesome. It doesn't seem to overlap with anyone else. Like, the only person who would do that role is maybe like NiKo, but that's about 5 years ago now. Like, that's not even the player NiKo is anymore. So to me, I just think, like, as of right now, if we do the same logic as I said with NiKo, if I'm just looking at the next major, this lineup's great. Like, the only one I'm even thinking about is the Huxley angle. So the weird angle to me is this, like, one, who am I upgrading him for? That's the other problem. It better be someone fucking amazing. Like, the joke is it better be like Magisk or fucking Rops or something. Like, otherwise, why am I trading him? And then the other point is when you say that maybe he won't do it for 2 years, okay, that could be true. But again, like that assumes I'm like on some Falcons project where I've got like the next 4 majors, I've got like 3 years, it's like sports. Like, unfortunately, CS isn't like that. Like, if I'm in CS, I'm just thinking of next year's majors, Kassad, the 2 that are next year, the Copenhagen one, the China one. And if I'm G2, if I keep JKS, I have a chance to win those majors. Like, I'm within realms. I'm in the top 4 of the teams that are going to be there. I'll give you the CS2 angle. No one really knows how he's going to do in CS2. Maybe he was shit in scrims. I don't know. That could be true. So my question to spin back to you is this. One, do you not think, though, that basically if JKS leaves and he becomes like the star of a bad team, isn't that sort of like the gradual end of JKS's career? Doesn't he just go down? Like, he's not going to win any big trophies, is he? And then secondly, is the implication that you think Nexa is the upgrade here? Like, who's the upgrade to do a better job than JKS? He was pretty good at it for my money. And crucially, by the way, he didn't have any pressure on him at G2, I felt, at least. Like, he just got to frag. He just got to do his job.
First of all, I don't think it's going to be the end of his career. If he acts normally, if he reacts normally to whatever is happening right now, if he goes to his like super quiet kind of introvert mode, then he might end up in a shit team, and then the career is pretty much over, because before you know it, he's going to turn 30 and nobody will want him because the young kids will just pop up and they will be cheap and whatever, right? So I think, for like I said, it's a good move for G2 to make. It's an understandable move. I don't disagree with it one, but the upgrade, to answer your upgrade, who can do the better job? Naf. Naf can do a better job.
Is he available though? Like,
isn't he?
Is he?
But did you see the state of Liquid right now? I mean, they're falling apart. We still don't know what the hell is going on. They reported all these rumors, transfers, and now they're reporting they're staying together. They're getting KDN. They're not getting KDN. They're, what the hell is going on? So if I'm NAF, I'm thinking like, oh man, my whole organization is falling apart. I have a girlfriend that's, I think, European, and I'm very much in love, and I want to be in Europe, and I am an anchor, and JKS is out, and G2 is pretty good team. NiKo is there. Maybe I send my agent to see what's going on.
Okay, that's spicy.
He is 25 years old, Duncan. Like, he's not 27, so he has 5 more years, at least 2 or 3 more years at the highest level, which is the length of the contract that I would offer him. All right, there is a 2.5-year deal for you. These are the incentives. This is the requirements. This is what I want you to do. And are you interested? Go to Liquid and just try to trade. You want JKS? Give me that.
I will say that's not a bad trade. Like, if NAF leaves, JKS would be a pretty good fill for Liquid too. I'd take that move. Yeah. I mean, and he obviously has been in NA before. It'd all work, you'd think.
Yeah, there is solutions for this, right? I don't think it's necessarily a bad move for anyone. I think it can be a good move for everyone, unless JKS reacts poorly to it, or G2 sets some sort of a fucking crazy buyout, asking for 300k for JKS when they paid for him like 50,000 or something. And it's just, that makes no sense. Then it can be bad for JKS, that can be bad for G2. But if they play it right, that's the thing that we're missing in our community and competitive environment, that people that don't understand how to talk to each other in these situations. Like, I can see the situation where JKS is not communicating to anyone in the management, and management just asking for $400,000, and then JKS sitting 6 months.
Yes.
Not playing, organization paying the half of the salary as well, simply because they cannot sit down in a room and discuss the things that need to be discussed, because they would all be happy with this and they would all be finding a solution if they communicate a little bit more. But if it goes the other way, it's going to be a disaster for everyone. It's going to be a disaster for G2, it's going to be a disaster for JKS, and whoever gets JKS in that state after. So that's going to be a future problem for some organization. But let's hope and see like how they react to it. But the upgrade, it can be NAF number 1, and we can discuss the the upgrade that has been mentioned if you want.
Yeah, let's do it, because the obvious question goes like this, mate.
Well,
It's one thing when you talk about NiKo, because he is one of the best players ever. Even Hunter's been pretty good the last few years. But people are just going to think it's mad Serbian bias if you tell me Nexa can be good and in G2. Like, remember, this is the point I have to make, Kassad. It's not about, is Nexa a nice guy, or does he contribute to a team, or is he all right at CS? Like, we're talking about a team where, like, let's be real, the standard you're holding, like Huxley in G2 is, they're supposed to win the major. So if Nexa joins, I have to believe that you think he can win the major with G2. Do you? Is this possible?
no.
So you're not a fan of this move?
But no. I don't think they can win a major, but not because of Nexa. They cannot win the major because of Huxley. I said that multiple times, and it's still going to remain.
But if Nexa's not an IGL,
they can have 6 players, Duncan, and 2 JKS in the team, and if they have Huxley, they won't win the fucking major.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, it's the Nexa himself. There is positives and there is negatives, right? About this move, right? The positive is the fact that Nexa is going to be a free agent. I think he's
so it won't cost money. Okay.
So he won't cost any money except for I don't think his salary is going to be any higher than JKS. Probably is going to be even lower because his stock is a little bit lower right now. But then he can make it up because they didn't pay anything to OG or whatever the hell is the deal. The positive side is the fact that they can communicate properly. They know each other. They can easily make things work. Obviously, there were traction in the previous iteration of G2 lineup. It's not they split up because they were all super good friends and family and, Serbian buddies. It wasn't like that. It's never like that. Not even the best teams in all sports. You remember Bulls. You remember all the teams. They all have problems between each other. It happens, right? The positive side is obviously in game that I think Nexa can do a little bit more on the T side than JKS. Nexa, you can see that the game right now is a little bit more dynamic, is a little bit more faster. It requires a little bit more reactions. It requires players to be a little bit more quicker. And I think Nexa is quite quicker than JKS to react on these sides. That's something that G2 will suit. That's something that Huxley and his calling and NiKo and his playstyle will suit more than JKS, that is always waiting slow and waiting for all the things to happen so he can make his move. Next is a player that can make his move be behind, without having to wait for certain things to happen. So he can recognize the timings better. On the CT side, he's equally good as JKS at the very least. He can deliver numbers and he can be a turret in the site every single time. What's going for JKS is the fact that he played in the last year and Nexa played in OG, which was not very good. The stats are showing that.
Didn't you think JKS, he was a bit crap? Wasn't he a bit bad in OG?
Yeah. He was terrible in OG in the last 4 or 5 months. I don't know the state and why.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And why he was, maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe he wasn't feeling the team. God knows what happened, right? Maybe we get the chance to talk to him as well. But the thing is, if you look at the stats, then you will see that JKS did better. That's going for JKS, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's going for G2. He played better. His stats are better. His numbers are better. He won 2 events with them. He already knows the system. He already knows the calling. He already knows the timings. Those are the positive things, right? But when you weigh them out, what is the better solution? To get somebody new, fresher, that's going to improve your game? Or hope, if you keep JKS, that players will perform their best so we can win 2 events that we won in last year? Because they won them when they all played the best. Remember that one? Katowice, they were all playing super crazy good. All of them.
Yeah.
Cologne, the same. Every other event was nothing. It was really 1 or 2 players. There were events when NiKo played like shit.
It's true. I mean, at Katowice, he wasn't that sick, actually.
Shit.
Yeah, true.
He wasn't that sick in Katowice. Just look at Sydney. He was playing terrible in Sydney.
Yeah.
And if you need all 5 players to perform all the time for you to win an event, then you don't have a good team, right?
Let me spin this on you, though, because the obvious question for you goes like this. You seem quite happy with these moves in general, except you thought NiKo should have gone to Falcons. The reason I'm surprised by that, Kassad, is how can there be roster moves and Huxley not being cut and you be fine with it? Surely, like, number one thing is like, because like I say, the other reason I hate this move is this, Kassad. It's like, can someone other than Huxley have a go with this team? Like, I know it's too late now for Snappy, he's going to Falcons, but like, can my boy Snappy not just have a go with this team with JKS and everything? Like, I think it's a pretty good squad. Like, all the IGLs I know who are available, because I'd tell me they would just take this exact team. Just give me it. Just let me have a go.
Look at this, Duncan. Look at this. I go to Ants right now. And I call Ants and I call Snappy and I say, listen, I'll match whatever his Falcons are offering for Snappy right now. Give it to me. You think Ants is gonna go and Snappy is gonna go to Falcons or he's gonna go to G2? He's gonna go to fucking G2 any day now, right? That's the move that I would make if I was G2.
Especially if NiKo's not in Falcons, maybe now we'd consider it, yeah. Maybe now we'd consider G2.
I'll match whatever you offer, right? And I'll add something if you really want to, if you can afford it, right? And then you just get rid of Hooksy, get Snappy, and look at what you have. Like a full fucking team right now.
Yes.
And you don't have to worry about anything. You have the proper IGL, you have your star back, you have your players, you kept your Opper, and I don't know what you want to do with JKS, but you still have a team. And it's going to cost you what, right? Because I don't know what the deal with Snappy is, but probably it's not probably that big.
No, I don't think it has to be that crazy. As far as I know, they don't get that much in end still. It's just like an okay salary,
yeah.
you know.
So you can match that if you're G2.
Yes.
Dedicate some more funds because it's going to pay out. But that's not how they think. That's not how they do things.
By the way, obviously you can tell me what you can say on this front, but like, if it isn't NiKo doing these moves, because the other one obviously is people think NiKo must have got a Nexa, because as you say, the Serbian Brotherhood and all that jazz and family and all that. But if it's not him, who is it? Is it the GM? Does Pekka, the guy who joined last year, does he make decisions in G2? Whose vision is this project, in your opinion? Like did NiKo want Nexa to rejoin? I mean, I guess he was boys with him from before to some degree, right?
I don't think he minded. I don't think he said no to it. But like I said, he was there. I think the not he was there. The conversation of Nexa being there and like talkings and like whatever, like the deal was supposed to be made was in the making when NiKo was out of the door.
Oh, right.
He had no clue what the deal was being made. Right. Wasn't asked like, hey, you want Nexa in?
Right.
So he went back and it's like, yeah, we are talking to Nexa, we are whatever, right? That's how.
So it's also just bad timing again, because it also does look like NiKo stays, and it's like Nexa's joining now. It's like everyone's it's NiKo did it all, of course.
And to answer your question, I do think it's let's say it like this. I think it goes 50% to the management, like maybe Pekka, and maybe 60%, and then 20% is the players. I'm sure he talked to Hunter, he talked to Hooksy and the coach and whatever, right? And then the management, like the upper guys and the board has the final say, like, we can do this because, we want to do this because we can pay this much and whatever, right? I'm sure that is some sort of maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, makes sense.
But I would assume that's the case, right? That he was the one pulling the strings, at least for the better part of those deals, right?
I've got another question for you then. This is a good one as well. It's pure, in theory, it's speculation, right? Like you can inform it by things you know yourself, but I don't want you to feel like you're pressured to say what people have told you. So you decide how to answer it. It goes like this. It's kind of like the question I asked earlier about why doesn't NiKo take more control? Like, for example, like I always say on my shows, I think the two most important roles in the game are Opera and IGL. So I would never play with someone I thought was like subpar. If I'm NiKo, I would be like, I've got to have those two roles. So essentially, if you remember, right, at the end of when they had that lineup in 2021, Kassad, before Nexa got kicked out, one of the stories, if you remember, was Hunter did that interview where he said, the quote was like, we're not changing the lineup, even though, by the way, I actually did already know from behind the scenes from knowing Carlos that they were going to get Alexi B and potentially, like, I mean, at the time, no one knew all the lineup, but they obviously ended up getting Monacy as well, and they did these big signings, right? There was that, and if you remember, one of the things they even tried to imply at one point, you'll remember this, was they implied at one point maybe Hunter would become the IGL. Do you remember this story? I think they also put that out there. This was all coming from like the Hunter and NiKo camp of the G2 players, as far as I remember. So my question goes, do you actually get the sense, you can either purely speculate or maybe do you ever get the sense, like, is this something that they, like, do they long term have, like NiKo and Hunter, do you think they actually have a plan for, like, potentially Hunter becomes the IGL or they change up from Hooksy? Do you think they're actually cool to play with Hooksy? Are they fine with it? Are they different from you in this sense? They think it's fine?
I think they should think that way. I think they should try to groom someone to be the IGL. I think they should have already done it. I suggested that a long time ago, that they should get Hunter to be the IGL and NiKo to support him in the calls, to be the secondary caller, so they can afford more sustainable, more skilled players to have a complete team. NiKo has been through a lot in Mousesports phase and all this drama that he has been in the finals and the things that he won and the fact that he didn't win a major, and remember the finals against Navi and whatever the fuck happened, right? So he knows how to deal with pressure, right? He knows how to deal with this shit. and he's supposed to be there. Does he want to call? Maybe you don't want him to call. Is Hunter smart enough to call? I think
Seems
he
like
is.
it. If you look how he plays,
I think he is. Does he want to do it? I don't know. Should he do it at some time? Yes, absolutely. I think but that's not really a vision for players. They should not be dealing with this. He should not be thinking about this. This is a you hire a coach like fucking Bill Belichick, like fucking Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, whoever you want to hire, and they have this vision of how they want to run the franchise, how they want to run the division, how they want to run the whole team, right? And then you say like, listen, we're gonna have Hooksy for 2023. Meanwhile, at like June, July, second part of the season, we're gonna start grooming Hunter to be the IGL for the fucking 2024, right? And then you give him like you talk to your coach. Coach translates your vision. You to make a plan together. You translate your vision onto the players, individually himself, giving him more responsibility over time, more and more and more and more. The season ends, 2023 ends. You say goodbye to Hooksy. You announce your new IGL, a new player, and you start 2024 and see at the end if your vision is good. If you're a good coach, if you're a good GM, your vision will be fine because you have the pieces. This decision should not be on the player. It should not be on NiKo, it should not be on Hunter, it should not be on Monesi or whoever, right? It needs to be the decision on the GM, or it needs to be the decision on the coach working together. Right now, people are scrambling, making moves, making dub moves, like doing all this kind of shit when they're completely missing the mark of what their job description should be, right? And there is operational side of the business, there is like, the vision side of the creative side of the business, and there is being a fucking ambassador and the face of the thing. You cannot be all three things. You can if you are you fucking Jerry Krause couldn't do it. The fucking small fat guy trying to do it, but his moves were fucking legendary. He thought like 3 moves ahead of everyone, right? But he was hated, and you don't want to be liked. You just need to have a good vision, translate that vision to your fucking coach that you hired, that you kept there for years now, that you did a good move, moving him up from the analyst role to the coach. Now translate that vision, work together, and just get the team going because you have the pieces. Otherwise, in a year from now, he's gonna be gone. He was almost gone. NiKo was almost your star player, was almost gone. The second star player, which was Monesi, wanted to leave. He was supposed to leave, and they decided not to sell him, which is making him unhappy, right? Probably. If I was Monesi and I'm his agent, I say, listen, don't show up for practice. Don't show up for practice. Bet yourself. If I'm his agent, if I'm representing his interest, you're 19 years old, 18 years old, you don't want to be in that team, but NiKo is gone. You don't see the future in that team. Your value is high. G2 can get a lot of money for you. You want to go to whatever, Cloud9, Cloud9, Falcons, whatever team, right? You want to go. Don't show up for practice. That's what you want to do. But like, there is so many layers to this fucking job, being a coach and GM, that people are just completely missing.
Well, this is one thing. Obviously, we've done a past interview about this topic, about the need for proper general managers and the idea that someone can actually kind of what we're talking about with Falcons, the idea you get like an actual runway of like 2 years where you build and you don't tell them like we're going to win the next major. It's like, no, we'll win the third major and like I'll qualify for the first one. I'll have the pieces together. You do it like that, obviously, right? Obviously, the last question I'll ask you on this interview goes like this. It's along those lines, Kassad, which is if people do know, like not like these fake ones on Twitter, the real insiders like me and you who know the players and know the orgs and some of the moves that are going on. I actually think, Kassad, the most underwhelming thing is everyone's heard from the leakers for the last month all these amazing rumours, but as you pointed out, none of them have come true. Like, even though I've heard all those liquid moves were going to happen, they haven't. They haven't actually signed the players yet. And here's my question. The thing that tells me that we really need proper general managers and people with, like you say, the bigger picture, not like short term, is because as far as I know, the 2 things that have decided these last 2 roster manias, the one at the beginning of CS2 after the player break, and now this one, is just fucking roster locks. People had to lock a roster for Blast, and now they have to lock a roster, like you're saying, when the RMR comes in a month or 2. Like, this isn't like sports. Like, people aren't actually signing the players they want. They're sort of like just trying to go like, it's like, the game musical chairs in English. Like, you play the music and you're all dancing around, but the second the music stops, like the roster locks the music stopping in this analogy, you have to just sign whoever's there and just have that lineup. Like, this is no way to run a team, because the real reason I bring this up is the Falcons one's the best example. It's one thing if you're some small org, Kassad. If you're Fnatic, Fnatic, you can cut Roy and then sign someone else. It's not a big deal there. But if you're like Falcons, like we say with the NiKo deal, dude, you're gambling millions and millions on this. And then if it doesn't happen, maybe this other guy doesn't come and now I've signed a player, but that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like the actual, like this has bigger implications than just you did or didn't sign a player. Like it doesn't work, this approach. Like I said, this isn't like they actually need GMs as far as I get. It almost doesn't exist as a role, this implies. You know, it's like players just scrambling to get a lineup.
They need GMs that can think 2 months behind, fucking 2 months like past today.
Yes.
Like, you know, the transfer, like the roster lock is complete bullshit, like thing. That should be, that will be cancelled at some point, right? Because the partnership things and like whatever,
Yes.
right? Transfer, like, we should have a transfer window. We should have like a, that's the thing, that we don't have a governing body, we don't have a united fucking front when it comes to esports. When you can, like, you have FIFA or FIBA or fucking NBA or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you can say, like, listen, this is a transfer window in 2 seasons. You can transfer this. You can sign free agents anytime you like. You can set up the list of fucking rules. So people don't have to do this and scramble. Like you said, there's a millions of dollars into this Falcons thing. Like NiKo was supposed to cost whatever, like over $1 million. Let's say it like that. And now they don't get him. Now they don't get another player. Now they have to scramble. They already paid $500,000 or God knows how much for Magis, Sonic, and this guy. So what the fuck happens there? Did we need to pay that much? Like, you know, and there is also a situation when you are a GM, you have plan B, plan C. If this guy doesn't work out, like always count on the things not working out.
Yes.
That's how you start. Like you don't expect them to be completely as you imagine. It's not going to happen anytime. It might happen sometimes, but there is going to be situations where it doesn't happen. It happened with NiKo right now. The deal was supposed to be done.
It actually makes Falcons look a bit amateurish, doesn't it? That they don't have like a second really good player that they're also talking to that was like almost signed. I agree. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. Look at Liquid as well.
Yes.
All these rumors and all these things, Cadian here, there, Patsy, Rainmaker, whatever the fuck happened there, and then all of a sudden we still don't know what the hell is happening. And the RMRs are in a month and a half. Like, where do you find the time to get your team to the level they need to be to qualify for the major? We all know that NA lost a fucking spot in the last major because they fucked up, whatever. Now, like, what happens? Like, you're going to have a player break. How much time these players are going to have to get into the shape, to practice with the team, to build a structure and deal with all these, you know, structured teams, all these made teams that are already there. So it's like I said, GMs, coaches, they need to do a much better job right now because the game has evolved completely from the financial side, from the operational side, from the competitive side. Everything has evolved to the next level. We need more competent people to deal with and tackle these issues. And also the state of esports is terrible right now. Like I said, everybody is like for himself right now. You know, there is no united front, there is no governing bodies, there is nothing. We can do whatever the fuck we want. We have like conflict of interest everywhere. We have like all this shit is happening, and all people think about is what NiKo is gonna say on the next tweet and what the fuck is Overdrive saying. Who the fuck cares? We have bigger problems.
True.
I may not have the most supporters in the world, but the ones I do have are straight fire. And they include Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Frisky, Ahmed Hadjou, Thooorin, Tobias Bernasconi, Animosity, Tosh, Jensen Goh, and you know it always is a special thanks going out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my show? Do you want to see things I say on my Discord, a little piece of straight fire I drop in the Patreon-only channels, stories I tell people in the other ones? Do you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA? Do you want teasers? Find out who the next guests are for Reflections interviews? Maybe you want to be one of those people who takes part in the long-form discussion with me where we talk about whatever's on your mind in esports. Well, if any of those or more sound interesting, why not support me, put your money where your mouth is, and join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.